Hi everyone, this is your instructor, Mr. Thomas. I'm going to be talking to you today about Module 1 Part 2. This video is going to be much shorter than the last one, and hopefully the rest of them will be just as short. Module 1 Part 2 is three study assignments, emotional intelligence PDF to read, and 2 videos to watch. It's actually, the information in this is outstanding. The amount of work you have to do in terms of the studying isn't that big of a deal. So let's just jump right into it. So by clicking Part 2, it'll take you to the page in which you have your 3 study assignments. The first one is a PDF on emotional intelligence. I very much encourage you to read through this, including 2 focus questions. What are the 4 components of emotional intelligence, or what we call emotional EQ, which is very similar to IQ in terms of what we're trying to explain. So we call it EQ sometimes, but it just means emotional intelligence. And what's the most common conflict students experience with instructors? Some things to think about throughout, not just reading this assignment, but the whole thing. Okay, so if we click on this link, it's going to take us to this page. So we'll pull that up, and we have, well, I was already down at the bottom. Sorry, hold on. There's the top. It carries you through some things. The first thing I want to talk about, it tells you, by the way, everything we're showing you, we have open access to, and this shows you the link, and just to prove to you we're not plagiarizing, which is a very bad thing to do. And let's close that. All right. This guy named Daniel Goleman was one of the pioneers of this idea of emotional intelligence. Him and a few other psychologists back in the 90s took a look at IQ, which was developed in the late 1800s, early 1900s by contemporaries of Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud. And IQ is, I have a degree in psychology, and I will tell you that IQ is a very poor measure of intelligence. It only measures a very narrow band of intelligence, and sadly, if you do not score high in those narrow bands of intelligence, then you are considered to be unintelligent, and tons of decisions about you are made, about your schooling, about the kind of jobs you can have, and you know, it's almost a, yeah, what's the word? Not racist, not sexist, but all those things added together. It's just very biased, right? Emotional intelligence is a little bit different way of looking at intelligence. It covers a different type of intelligence, and it opens up an idea that there are tons of types of intelligences rather than just the ones measured by IQ. We're going to get into these several times throughout this class, but the first one we're going to talk about is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is basically it's a social intelligence. Hold on, let me highlight this. That involves the ability to monitor your own internal feelings and emotions, and to some degree be the master of them. I hate to say control them, but at least to be the master of them, and then to discriminate among what are intelligent ways of revealing these feelings and emotions, and then use the same thing to let it guide your actions, and then you can transfer that knowledge to how you deal with other people. Okay? So it covers all kinds of things. Self-awareness, I'm going to have you read all this, I'm just lightly covering it. Self-awareness, which then leads to self-management. Social awareness, which is an outreach of self-awareness. Social awareness, of course, being how you interact with others. Self-awareness being an understanding of your internal environment. And then self-management being managing the environment. Social awareness being an understanding of your external relationships, and then how to manage those. So when we take a look at things like how to apply emotional intelligence to being successful, there's a couple of ways to do that. So this is an internal thought, man, I'm dumb. It's a very negative thought. But another way of looking at it is I'm not dumb, I just made a mistake. That's positive emotional intelligence, okay? Rather than saying I'm an idiot, you can say I need to work on my people skills, right? I say I'm an idiot all the time around my wife, but what I really need to do is just work on my marriage skills. And so look at these 2, read this, and you'll see what we're talking about. It's just a different way of managing your internal thought processes. All right. This video, oh wow, this is the video I was looking for. I was actually going to link this video inside of the Blackboard shell, but this video, if you have time, I would strongly encourage you to watch it. I think you'll find it very interesting, and it is all about emotional intelligence. Moving on, hang on, all right. This is important. This is how we apply emotional intelligence to being in the classroom. The benefits of communicating with instructors and knowing how to apply emotional intelligence here is discussed here. Guidelines for communicating with instructors. I would strongly encourage you to read these. Now, some of these may sound like, like professors are being a little elite, and I'm not that kind of a guy. But, the more you can address professionally, the more you can interact with an instructor professionally, even if it is on a friendly basis, the better you're going to do in the class. It's just a given, okay? And by doing all of that, you're expressing a self-awareness and a social awareness that is very high on the EQ scale. This is, again, just guidelines for communicating. Here's a form of communication called email. I can't tell you the number of times I get an email from a student that it's like I'm talking to someone that's, been kicked in the head by a horse sometimes, because and I apologize if you know anyone that's been kicked in the head by a horse, but, they're very short, they're very blunt, they have absolutely no character, no personality to them, and when I read them, my responses tend to be sure. Something very short, something very, kind of non-committal. Whereas if you take the time to write me a well-written, well-thought-out, even possibly light-hearted kind of an email, my response to you is going to be the same way. So read through this and get some ideas on how to do that. Again, conflict resolution strategies, especially with instructors. I guarantee you will have some form of conflict with an instructor, whether it's over a grade, over a test score. Instructors in college are usually not discipline oriented, because we're not high school teachers, although a lot of us are, but you may find yourself being chastised by an instructor for being late, or having a late paper, or doing poor job on a paper, and or you may go to an instructor and say, listen, I don't understand, I got a bad grade on this and I worked really hard. There are ways in which you can interact with the instructor using your emotional intelligence that can resolve these conflicts without you getting into too much trouble. And then, so here's some key points. And finally, go ahead and fill this out. It won't hurt you. And then this, by the way, says true or false, not fall. And then you're finished with that. So reading through this assignment, do a good read. It won't take you 10 minutes. Go through here, try to pull in that information about the difference between social and self-awareness, social and self-management, and then also go in there and make sure that you're reading all that stuff about interacting with instructors using a strong emotional intelligence. By the way, here's the thing about intelligence that's different. When IQ was developed back in the early 1900s, it was believed that it never changes. You're born with a certain IQ and it never changes. With these other types of intelligences we're going to be talking about, and emotional intelligence is one of them, it is now believed that you can change, that these intelligences are like muscles, that by using them and investigating them, you can, well, not investigating muscles, but you know what I mean, by using them, you can build them and improve them. So if you feel like your emotional intelligence is poor, congratulations. You are able to improve that by being aware of it, and then using it, and then looking for feedback and taking that feedback and using it again by applying the feedback. And all of the intelligences we talk about are the same way. This idea of growth mindset, I feel like a horrible teacher that I'm not going to spend 2 hours on this with you, but I will tell you that this is one of the most powerful things I've ever seen in my whole life. I strongly encourage you to listen to Dr. Dweck and her idea of growth mindset. This is just an introduction. She came up with this back in the 80s or something. And watch this video. It talks to you an awful lot about her. It's the beginning of her idea of growth mindset. Later on, we're going to be sharing more about growth mindset. You're going to be hearing it an awful lot, but this 10-minute video gets you started. Please watch it, and yes, I would encourage you to take notes. And then finally, a contemporary of Dr. Dweck is a girl named Angela Duckworth. This young lady is astounding, and she talks about an idea called grit. She wrote a book called Grit. I own the book and I've read it. It's a wonderful book, and what the basic core of this is, we now know at least what we can call this thing that makes people successful. We still don't know exactly what it is, or how you get it, or how we teach it or beat it into you, but it's called grit. And students with grit are going to be more successful than students without grit. And so I would encourage you to think about growth mindset and grit just an awful lot, because it is going to make the difference between you being successful or not. Basically, the current thinking is that with a growth mindset attitude and grit, you'll be successful. You can't be successful without these two things. Okay? All right, and then finally this says we're going to go to the assignment called Preparing for College, so I'm going to do that. We're going to go all the way back to this breadcrumb here, Introduction to College, and as soon as this happens, I'm going to pause it. I live out in the fringe of the boonies of the world, and I don't have very good internet, so I paused it so that you wouldn't have to wait for it to load. We click on Module 1 Assessments, pause, and we scroll down to M1A2, Critical Reflection on a Theory. Now, this has a .docx. This is in Microsoft Word format. Indian River State College offers you free Microsoft Word through your email, and you can get that. Please don't ask me how, I don't know, but you can get it. You can get all of the Office products. You can sign them to them for free. I personally enjoy Google Drive more, and that's why I will try to put the Google Drive link right here as soon as the video is done. And you can have your option. You can pull it down as a .docx or a Google Drive document. But if we open this, which, by the way, if you hover over this, it says alternative formats. If you push this button, it gives you several formats that you can download it in other than Microsoft Word. The original is in a doc, but you can pull it down as a PDF, which is what I just did. You can get it as an HTML, which you can view in any browser. An EPUB can be put on things like Kindles or other ebook readers. There's something called electronic braille if you're vision impaired. There's an audio and a Beeline reader for help if you need the audio version. I've never tried any of these, so I have no idea what they're like, but I did just pull down the PDF and it worked great. Now, the problem with the PDF is you're not going to be able to write on it, and so this particular one doesn't have any place for you to write on, and so if you want to, you can just pull up your own word processing, whether it's Microsoft Word or Google Docs, and just kind of copy and paste this and put into it and then answer it. So this is critical reflection of a theory. You explored 3 theories: growth mindset, emotional intelligence, and grit. And it's not like there are 3 separate theories. They all do kind of work together, which contribute to a successful college experience. The purpose of this assignment is to identify the theory you think will have the greatest impact, and read this whole thing. Then I want you to spend some time identifying, explaining, analyzing, and evaluating the answers, and then do me a good job. Identify the theory, explain the theory, and here's some help. Okay, then analyze your selection by giving ideas to justify it. So here's some prompts to help you out with that. And then finally, how does this theory reinforce your existing ideas or assumptions? Now, this ends up being about 500 words, but I got to tell you guys, 500 words in college, that's nothing. Okay, and it also shouldn't take you that long. So just sit down and start writing. Make sure you're answering the question. Make sure you're doing what it says, which is explain, analyze, evaluate. My internet's really cruddying out here, but make sure that you're doing all that. And when you get done, just submit it. As however document you like. If I don't like it, I'll send it back and ask you to rewrite. But more than likely, as long as you're hitting the word count around 400 or 500 words and you have done everything it said here, identify, explain, analyze, and evaluate, you're going to be fine. Don't freak out about this paper. And by the way, no, I'm not going to ask you to be writing lots of papers. You're just going to be writing, probably this will be the most writing that you have to do for the whole class. So just hop in there, do that writing, get it done. Mind your capitalization, punctuation, spelling, punctuation, not punctuation, capitalization, punctuation, spelling, grammar. Mind that. Type this thing up in a document that gives you help. There's lots of even add-ons to that will help you write better. But focus on that kind of thing. You're not texting a friend, you're writing a college paper. So take some time and make sure that this paper is well written. Okay? When you're done, submit it, and that's all of Module 1, Part 2. And I got this thing done in under 15 minutes. Make sure that you email me, text me, that's the best way to contact me, or you can even call me if you need to. We'll Zoom if you want to. And whatever I can do to help you guys out, but get to work. See you on the next video.